I have went to Paris. You mean been? Yes, I've been to Paris.
I know blue is not in her. She's a diamond.
Hey guys, and welcome to Excuseless English. I'm Nathan, and today we're going to be learning about the present perfect tense. So, you probably noticed in our intro, the present perfect can be a little challenging. And I think the biggest reason for this is in many languages, the way you think about time, the way you think about what is past, what is present, what is future, is a little different than how we express it in English. So that leads to that problem that we just saw in the intro, right? So you want to say something, it seems really pretty simple. You're talking about something you did in the past, and yet you need to say, I have been to Paris, instead of I went to Paris or I have went to Paris, and it's all kind of confusing, right? I mean, I can understand how it would be. So, this video is all about clearing up any questions you have, any doubts you have about how to use the present perfect tense. So, we're going to learn number one, what it is, number two, how it's made, and the number three, when to use it. And guess what? I even have a tip for you to explain when you use the past tense versus when you use the present perfect. And I'm going to make it really simple for you so that you no longer have any issues with that. And also, guys, I want to remind you the channel is really new, right? So this is our third week. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you know anyone who is learning English that would benefit from these videos, send them a link. That way we get as many viewers as possible and we can keep this content going in future lessons. All right, so let's get into it. For today's lesson, I'm going to pop a chart up here on the screen. And I want you to pay attention to how the present perfect tense is made.
And here we are. So, the first thing you notice when you look at this chart is that, yes, this is the present perfect tense, and number two, that the present perfect tense is made up of three different parts. There is always a subject, there is always the word have or has, and then there is what's called a past participle. Now, I have a feeling if you're watching YouTube videos, it's probably because just reading a grammar book doesn't really make sense to you. So this might seem a little bit complicated, but I'm going to try to make that pretty easy. Number one, let's talk about the subject. The subject is whoever you're talking about. So generally it's going to be the I, you, he, she, but it also could be something else like the boy, the dog, the chupacabra. It could be anything. In our example sentence, I have been to Montana, the subject, naturally, if you want to take a guess, is I. Now, moving on from that, what word goes in the middle? This is the easiest part of the present perfect tense. We always use the word have. So, have, of course, is the present tense of the word to have. So, if we're using he, she, it, we're going to say has instead of have. So the boy has, it has, she has. But everything else is going to be have. So that makes it pretty easy, right? Moving on now, past participle. The past participle is basically a form of the verb that we use to connect to a linking verb, a verb like have. And usually the past participle is pretty simple. You just add ed. It looks exactly the same as the past tense. But if you've studied English long enough to understand what I'm saying, you've also studied English long enough to know that there's a ton of irregular verbs. The best thing I can suggest to you, and I'm going to leave a link in the description, is go online, find a list of irregular verbs. And a friend of mine from Russia taught me this. When you're learning any irregular verb in English, learn three things. Learn the root word, learn the past tense, and learn this thing, the past participle. Because if you know those three parts of any irregular verb in English, then you're going to be able to use it in all of the different tenses.
Now, everyone, before we go any further, don't forget your contractions. I've, you've, he's, she's, all of it. when a native speaker uses the present perfect tense or any word with have, we use contractions. Very simply, it's just how we speak. So if you want to sound more natural, and also if you want to help yourself be able to understand a native speaker when they're talking, get used to the contractions, become comfortable having them in your speech, and it's really going to bump up the level of your English.
All right, everyone, so let's get into it. We're talking about the present perfect. Well, how do you use the present perfect? What is it for? You see on your screen, I have two uses. Use number one, past continued to present. And use number two is experiences. Let's start with use number one. Past continued to present, what does that mean? Well, it's not so complicated. It means something that happened in the past kept happening over and over and over again until we reach the present. And chances are it's going to continue into the future. So a great example, one that I really love, is I have lived here for 3 years. It's different than saying I lived here for 3 years, because I lived is just in the past. The past tense is only in the past, it's never in the present, it's never in the future. So it's different from saying I lived here for 3 years. And the reason is the past tense, lived, is always in the past. It can never be in the present and never in the future. But in English, we talked about this in our intro, we view time differently. So have lived suddenly changes. To us now, it's not just something in the past. It's something that started in the past, but it's still happening right now. And that means that it's very distinct from just the regular past tense.
So let's look at some examples here. I've lived in New York for 10 years. Really? I've only lived in New York for 3.
Okay, so use number two is experiences. And what is an experience? Well, an experience is anything that you have experienced in your life. It does not have to be life-changing. It does not need to be significant. Going to McDonald's is an experience, especially if you go to the McDonald's I do, because they never get my order right. But that's besides the point. What we want to focus on here is an experience is something you've done. And what makes it different from the past tense then? The truth of the matter is the past tense and the present perfect when it comes to experiences are basically the same. But usually a native speaker will use the past tense when they're talking about an event in a story. For example, yesterday I went to McDonald's, then I went to the store, and then I came home. Past tense, past tense, past tense, because I'm telling a story. Now, on the other hand, have you ever been to McDonald's? Yes, I've been to McDonald's. Why do I use the present perfect, have been, in the second example? Because we're not telling a story, we're just asking about a previous experience. And for a native speaker, that's generally how we decide to use one or the other. Now, let's look at an example.
Yeah, I went to Rome last year. Yeah, I've been to Rome. All right, so now that we've gotten through all of that information about how the present perfect works, there is still one important question that we have to answer. How do we practice? The truth is, like any other tense, you practice by using it. But I have a couple games I want to share with you that are great for practicing the present perfect. So, game number 1 is around the world. I want you to find a friend who's learning English, take a map, and start practicing the present perfect. Ask them where they've been, or what countries they've been near, what sites they've been near. Make a game out of it, and see if you can figure out every country that they've visited, and mark it on the map. Then let them do the same thing with you. Okay, so have you been near Turkey? Well, yes, I've been near Turkey. Alright, so game number 2 is the experiences game. And very simply, the present perfect tense, one of its 2 uses is experiences, right? So, naturally then, if you want to practice the present perfect tense, start asking people questions about their experiences. Hey, have you ever been skiing? No way, man. I hate the cold. Okay, everyone. So that brings our lesson to an end. I want to thank all of you for joining me. And before we go, it's time for our homework. Class, today's homework is answer the following question. Can present perfect and past simple ever be the same? Give an example to support your answer. Leave your answer in the comments below. And there we go. So I look forward to grading your homework. And now let's finish up with our new way to say goodbye. Today's new goodbye is very simply, have a good one. So everyone, have a good one, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.